Playing that one for you, Toya. How are you?
I'm awesome. How are you?
Doing good. So it is our industry update on Tuesday. And we normally do it on Monday, but yesterday was a holiday and we didn't want to go a whole week without missing industry news. So we decided to do it on Tuesday.
I love it. Well deserved.
Well served. All right, so let's dive in. Toya, reintroduce yourself just in case people on the call don't know who you are. And you're awfully special and amazing, and I want to make sure they know.
I am the team leader in South Fulton, right off of Camp Creek Parkway, not too far from our magnificent airport.
Yep, and you're moving at some point.
We're moving to historic College Park, which is approximately about 15 minutes from where we are now.
Right next to that 6 West development, right?
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, let's dive in. So this week on the 7-day FMLS stats, let me move my screen so it's all on one screen. Are you seeing the screen? Or are you seeing?
You're good.
You're good. So we had 1,269 new listings, which is a little down over the last 2 weeks,
Yep.
but pretty consistent with what we've been seeing. What I find interesting about this number, Toya, is I'm not really seeing a drop off after summer. Like I expected it to slow down a little more on the listings coming on the market. Obviously, there was a little spike there on the 23rd, but we took more listings the first week of September than we did the first week of August.
Yep.
That's not pretty normal in the traditional bell curve, especially with a holiday at the beginning of September. So I actually find that as very optimistic and good news. What would you make of it?
I think it's great news, and I think you're spot on, particularly when we're looking at it kind of slows down after school has started, and we really didn't see such a lag with that. So I think it's very optimistic move. That news that our market is still very hot, Brett. We're in a hot market.
It is very hot. Certainly it's hyper local and different price points in different areas have different temperaments, I guess is the way to say it. But being the local economist of choice is always the right way to be in real estate. And we're given a little bit, I wouldn't say it's a macro view, it's a macro metro Atlanta view. But it's certainly a pretty interesting view. You know, Keith Sharp on here, he had made mention, he said, Brett, you know, when you take 1,269 new listings and 1,063 went pending, that means you still created a little bit of a surplus added to the inventory, right?
Right.
So you're still leaving about 200 listings that added to the inventory that week. And if you go back and look in previous weeks, the week before there was about 150 added. The week before that was about 400 added. It was pretty flat the week before, and the week before that was about 60 added. However, you look at the closings each week coming off, you can make a case both ways, right? You can say, oh, we're starting to build up a little inventory, but you could also say, hey, we're pulling it off a whole lot faster than we're building it up. And I think you see that down here in our graphs, right?
Yeah.
So I love the fact that the blue line stays pretty constant, which tells me the weekly flow of agents writing contracts is staying pretty constant all the way from March. I mean, in March, it was at the highest at that 1,000 properties went under active contract that first week of March. But we've stayed a consistent flow with a little, you know, a little bumps here and there all the way from March 6th.
Which is amazing when you look at closed and new listings, how that has gone up and down.
All over the place, right?
It is.
What just goes to show, what I always ask myself the question, Toya, what are the talking points? What are the things I want people to walk away with from this kind of conversation, right? And to me, real estate's still moving. One, at a high level. Two, the traditional bell curve is out the window, right? Like
Gone.
2020, there was no traditional bell curve. The pandemic kind of threw it all over the place. And we finished the end of 2020 really strong. And it feels like, and I don't have a crystal ball, and maybe you do, but it sure feels like the end of 2021 is going to stay strong. What do you see?
I do. I think we are, even in the given reports that we'll be talking about, they're seeing that strength still going. So it hasn't slowed down, but there's one point that I always look for opportunities for our associates, because in real estate, we can always look at the glass half empty or half full, just depending on how we want to perceive it. But if you scroll up, Brett, and you look at the number of expires that hit the market,
Yeah.
that was one of the largest pieces when we're talking about 197 expired listings hit the market, which has been the greatest increase of expired listings that we've seen so far.
Yeah. And, we don't graph the expired listings, and certainly a lot of listings are written to expire at the end of the month. But I think there's a lot of listings that are written to expire at the end of the summer, i.e.
Yep.
August. So there could be a unique opportunity right before us right now. There's some
Absolutely.
probably homeowners that are just puzzled why their property didn't sell, and all they read in the news is everything's selling.
Exactly.
I also think in the volume of our market right now, if we're listing 1,200 plus homes a week, and you just do the simple math, that's about 10,000 a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
197 is not that many.
It really isn't in the big scheme of things. But, I tell people, take what you can get, your little slice of the pie, but that's not a whole lot.
Right. Get what you can get. I'm still watching the lease market, the rental market. There's a little spike in new listings coming on, and both the pending and the closing lines are trending back down. Not a lot to talk about here yet, but I anticipate this will be an interesting statistic to watch based on the climate of first-time home buyers and affordable housing statistics across the city. We'll see some indicators in these stats, right? So what do you get out of these numbers? Rick, I saw you pop on. You got anything?
Well, there's a couple thoughts that come to mind. One is, trends don't happen in a week. That's, is this week an anomaly? But, when it comes to the expired side of things, but if you look across the board, I think, my dad used to say, steady Freddy wins the race. Yep. And if you've learned to operate in the current climate or, market, the odds are good that you'll continue to succeed. And my question is, are you getting your unfair share, and are you braced for a potential shift? And I don't see anything in the numbers that appears to be driving a dramatic shift other than hyperlocal, circumstances. And so I would also speculate that there might have been some over exuberance in pricing through the summer, and that, maybe the buy side's cooling down a hair. I've been hearing through the grapevine from various sources that, the number of multiple offers is not what it was 60 days ago, 90 days ago.
I'm hearing the same.
Interesting to know with people on the call today, how many of you are experiencing that with their listings, where you're still getting multiple offers, or you're getting great activity and you're selling, but is it out of control over exuberant, quantities?
We're hearing the same thing. It really isn't where it was earlier this year or even last year. So we are seeing that the multiple offers have slowed down a little bit. I will say on the rental side of things, with the moratorium eviction being lifted, there may be some opportunities there where that rental market will increase because they have to go somewhere. So We'll see.
What do you mean the moratorium?
So the Supreme Court ends the eviction moratorium. So now people can no longer just stay in because of COVID. So NAR actually had a big push with that in terms of saying, hey, our landlords have suffered enough. They've got to get payment on these properties. So that is gone.
Yep. So I think there's a couple of things around that, Toya. And this article is on Market Watch, if you follow that news outlet. But basically, the pandemic economic stimulus is running out for most and is out for almost all as of yesterday. And what does that mean? It means stimulus checks, unemployment checks to the 1099 people, to anybody that got furloughed during the pandemic. They're pulling that way back to what all that looked like prior to the pandemic, and the expiration of the moratorium on evictions. They talk about it down here. Is almost over for most states. So while the federal eviction moratorium has expired, roughly a dozen states, all controlled by Democrats, have extended their moratoriums, including California, New York, Washington, Illinois, and Minnesota. New York's eviction moratorium was extended till January 15th, not Georgia. So Georgia's moratorium has expired. I think there's a couple counties that have extended it, like DeKalb County. But at the end of the day, is it going to affect our real estate market? What do y'all think?
I think so. We talked about it on our sales call today in terms of opportunities. Again, one, there's money out for, so if we have people that we know that are affected, whether they're landlords or their tenants, each county has been awarded money. So we actually had one of our city officials come on and talk about that. So there is help out there for them. It's just that this has been suspended. The second part is that we are seeing where out-of-state landlords, they're ready to sell. And so they may be going into a short sale market. So therefore, there is another opportunity for another group of housing markets to come on, listings to come on the market. And that may be with some short sales if they have not paid through that, or they were having problems paying with that. So we are seeing some changes there and opportunities.
There you go. There you go. So Keith's got a comment. He said, Fulton County has been processing evictions for quite a few months. They ignored the CDC rule. True point, Keith. I think you got a couple of questions I'll come back to, but just in terms of big picture, pandemic, government assistance, that's coming to an end, and it's debatable on if it's going to affect our real estate market or not, in a good way or a bad way, depending on what side of the fence you sit on. But at the end of the day, we were all, I think, kind of sitting around hoping that it was going to be our solution to inventory problems. And I think the reality is that's not going to happen.
No, I don't think that's going to be full overall.
We about 4 months ago, I think we were talking on this call going, maybe it'll fix our problem. It didn't fix the problem.
My best guess, Brett, is that if the number was like $300 a week is what they're paying out. And if you divide that by 40 hours, it's $7.25 an hour. I don't think our home buyers and sellers are in that group or bucket. And it's likely to affect, maybe the rental side. And there could be some, depending on how well heeled or, capable investors are at holding property without income for, X amount of time. But I think lifting, the moratorium on evictions is a critical step in keeping, solvency among people who make their living in the investor world or part of their income.
Sure.
But for that amount of money, I don't think it's going to impact buyers and sellers. And if I don't know about you, but how many restaurants do you drive by that are, pacing at about 30 to 50% of their volume because they can't get help? I don't know that if $7.50 an hour is going to cure making or not making your bills, that there are opportunities if that's your threshold.
Well, I think there's a segment of our industry that's kind of disappeared temporarily, which is that first-time home buyers, starter home, affordable home sector of our industry. And there was hope that the price point home that they would buy might make it back to the market. I just don't see it happening, but we can move on.
Affordable housing is a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, there's a whole nother. So 180 million people could be looking for homes in the coming years, and what it means for already hot U.S. housing market. This one, the Atlanta Business Chronicle. And the simple little blurb they said is, recent reports and surveys show a desire among millennials as well as renters and other generations want to be homeowners, but circumstances are making things a little difficult. That's the someday pipeline, right?
Yeah.
I think that what that says, well, what does that say to you?
Well, to me, it says that we need to be looking, and there's an opportunity for developers with affordable home buying. You know, we think about affordable home buying, and we're looking at our prices, average prices being around 300,000. That's not affordable for a millennial and someone who's possibly looking for first-time home buyers. And those that are looking right around that 200,000 threshold, it is like finding a needle in a haystack. So again, there is opportunity that can come available. And I think you'll show us a Redfin article. It'll be interesting to see what they're focused on as they expand here in the market that may open the doors for some first-time home buyers.
Yeah. What do you guys depict a first-time home buyer to be these days? If you were describing it.
I think it used to be someone that was, lower in the income pool, but today, my experience this year has been people that are have been waiting to buy, have been renting, have good incomes, and some of these first-time buyers are spending $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 on their first home. That's been a first for me.
Yeah.
Less of the I've got $5 in the bank for closing costs, so I'm ready to buy, and more like I think we're ready to stop renting and ready to invest some of our savings.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm seeing the same thing. I mean, first-time home buyers are spending $800,000 and up sometimes on their first homes because they're double income, they're fresh out of college, they have money, and they may have some estate money and those kind of things as well. But on the second hand, back to Toya's comment, I mean, I also work with clients that don't have money and are struggling and are FHA and need down payment assistance. So it's kind of that great divide. It's either they're doing really well or they're really hurt. There's no like in the middle.
And that you summed it up in a nutshell. That's it. The haves or the have-nots.
That's exactly it, unfortunately. So
and rent's not cheap. I don't know if you guys have shot for rental. We were transitioning from a house in Morningside to a townhome, and there was a moment in time where I thought maybe the play is to just rent for a year. It was depressing what you got for $2,000, $2,200, $2,500 and in and around the perimeter. And it's funny, deep into this article, the Business Chronicle article, it says ultimately millennials are paying a mortgage. Most of them just aren't paying their own mortgage. They're paying someone else's.
Yeah.
So how do we educate and inspire? If they're spending $2,000 to $2,500 a month, what does it look like to inspire more home ownership? And some of this lends itself to the affordability conversation Toya mentioned.
Gary put up a stat at Mega Camp, and he said, I think it was 5.9 or 5.6 million people bought a home last year or this year. And if you think of that volume, 5.5 to 6 million home sales. And this article is saying 180 million people are looking for homes in the coming years. That just says that there's a demand. To me, we talk about supply and demand. This is a demand article that says the anticipation is there is a heavy demand coming to our industry that's just sitting there in waiting. And I find that as a very positive, optimistic message around the next couple of years worth of real estate.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't speak to geographic desirability and the likelihood of some cities outpacing others. And clearly the metro Atlanta market and beyond is a very magnetic, healthy market. And there's lots of folks moving from all directions.
Yep.
So,
Toya made mention, Redfin extends its iBuyer service into select areas in Atlanta and Nashville. We were talking about this. So you turn on the television, if you still, like me, watch television that actually still has commercials these days.
Not just Netflix.
I'm seeing Zillow offers, Open Door, heavy marketing dollar spend into the Atlanta market around this iBuyer, and now Redfin's entering the space. And truth be told, it certainly affects different parts of our market more than others, because they certainly have their buy box, and their buy box tends to be atypical $200,000 to $600,000 price point homes that they have great comps on and they can flip pretty easily. There's a lot of corporate money, Wall Street money, buying real estate in Atlanta, Georgia. And I think it's important, one, to understand, and two, have strategy on how to go after it. What would you add?
I would add that we can compete just as well. It's just that you have to be your own billboard and figure out what your outlet is going to be. One of the things we talked about is we have Keller offers. Although that is more of a brokerage piece for us, it's still leverage for us because there is a market for this. If they're extending here, we've already seen that OfferPad has significant market share. And I do mean significant, sometimes outpacing most brokerages in the local area. So I just feel like this is an opportunity, for us to exercise and incorporate another tool that we have in our toolkit, which is Keller offers.
Yeah. I also think on the other side of the coin, it shows what stable real estate market we all sell in.
Mhm.
If Wall Street's pumping money into something, it's usually a good bet for them, right? They're not going after the risky stuff. They're going after the stuff that they can tried and true, which obviously Atlanta real estate market, we are a tried and true real estate market. The other article I pulled was the 3 ways to dominate a neighborhood. These aren't rocket science, but I think it's important as we're wrapping up 2021 and you're getting your head wrapped around what 2022 is going to look like. I think old school farming is a great strategy because little opinion piece here, but I think there's a couple really difficult leaps in the real estate journey, but one of them is becoming a great listing agent and going from just having business to being a listing focused agent, and its strategy and its marketing and all that stuff. And it's one of the more difficult leaps. However, dominating a neighborhood is one of those strategies in order to do that. And just real quick, be in the know, become an expert about everything in that neighborhood, know the people, know the homes, know the shops and vendors, know the news, tell everyone what you know. And you can get this article on Inman, obviously. Attend or host organized neighborhood events, celebrate the listings, on being next door, spread the news. And their brilliant third strategy is just flat move into the neighborhood, right?
One of them.
Certainly the easiest way to get there. Obviously, I didn't feel like it was rocket science, but I wanted to pull this article because I think being a hyper-local, geographic specific real estate agent is one of the strongest plays you can make. And really that's the motivation behind us doing these industry updates, is to get you more data and encourage you to go find more hyper-local data based on what you're hearing from us here to move towards being an expert in your local market. Rick, Toya, what would you add?
The only thing that I'd add is be the mayor of your neighborhood. And how do you
Okay.
become the mayor? Just be the expert and be the person who's always in the know and the go-to person.
Yeah.
Got it.
Income from contribution. I would say that secret agents die a painful death in our industry. So you want to be social and public, but also credible. And by being the neighborhood expert and developing and building a reputation for that expertise is the path to longevity.
There you go. And
Agreed.
Bob made mention in the comments, he said 180 million people, that's like 50% of the US population. So I'm guessing that's second home, investment properties, millennial, first-time home buyers. And I didn't catch the time frame that article mentioned, but if you realize most people move, it used to be every 5 years. I think that number accurately is more every 7 years. If what percent of the population is moving every year and take that over a 5-year period, you've got a really high probability of having people in your database that are going to turn over in the next 5 to 7 years.
Well, and if the conversation are millennials moving into their first home, their likely turn cycles far quicker and shorter. I dealt with a lot of first time home buyers in the 90s and early 2000s, and I'm guessing every 3 to 4 years they were buying really small bungalows and condos, and next thing you know, they're getting promotions or having children or getting divorced, or things just are a little more frenetic when you're young, and change more likely to occur.
Yep.
School districts become a conversation, after your children hit 4 and 5. And so just things happen.
We got another question, guys. It says, are we keeping record of for sale by owners? Really curious how that segment is tracking. What are y'all hearing?
Actually, that's one of the markets that we're targeting. I think because the market is so hot, you have a lot of people that say, I don't need a real estate professional yet. It's still an opportunity for us to go after that sub-market, to be able to say, you may not, there is some slowdown, and the multiple offers are slowing down. We're also seeing a lot of fallout. So that's the other part with dealing with a real estate professional. You kind of slow that down. You're able to help them vet the offers and be able to be a resource.
There you go. Rick,
I'm not seeing them at the level we saw them in the 90s and 2000s when every third house was a for sale by owner. I think they're going the discount broker route if they're going, low frills, low value, low consulting, but access to the FMLS and a sign in a lockbox.
I think the
Anybody see
iBuyers
anything
are picking
different?
up some of that for sale by owners as well.
Well, did you see the one stat in the Atlanta Business Chronicle article? And I don't know if they interviewed enough people to create validity, but said 70% would be comfortable buying 100% online. That was a surprising statement. And I don't know that I'm struggling to absorb that in its entirety. That's a big number.
Yeah.
But interesting. And it just shows the power of advertising in the media and, quality virtual tours and recognition of knowing the area. Maybe, I don't know, but that's a high number.
And it may just be a high number given where we are. We're in a pandemic. We've had to slow down people coming in and out of our homes. So people have gotten comfortable with the new way of selling properties. So that number may not be so far-fetched given where we are.
It's a great comment.
Yep. All right. Keith had brought up a couple of comments early on. He said, wonder how many of those expired listings are relisted and reflected in the new listings. Very well could be, Keith. I don't know the answer to that. Do y'all know the answer to that on FMLS stats?
I don't.
The other question he had is the absorption rate months or days of inventory increasing or decreasing? And, Keith, that's something I think would be an interesting thing for us to do a study on and bring back next week. So hopefully Niale will write that down for me, and we will do a little research on that and bring it back next week. How's that?
Sounds good. I think, given those, that question of whether a large percent of those expired listings are relisted and reflected in the new listings, as well as, this disparity between, it's fewer new under contract versus new listings, yet it's a much greater number of closings versus new listings. What does that say to our inventory situation? Is it decreasing as the large number of closings versus smaller number of new listings would suggest? Or I don't know. That's hence the question. So
Yeah,
look forward to hearing
I'll do a study next
analysis.
week. I'll do a study next week. And Christine said, maybe the media is just trying to inspire people to buy online, to Rick's comment. Anyway, there's
Sounds
your
like
weekly
they are.
update. We like to start and end on time. It is 1 minute early. Don't count me short. Happy Tuesday, Monday industry update.
Take care,
Awesome.
guys. Good to
Have
see
a good one.
everybody's faces.
Thanks. Same here. Bye.
Bye.